This is what the Quran says, this Amal Saleh, the common good. The good that is not only for me or for one community, but good for the entire humanity.
Dear brothers and sisters, my warmest welcome to our podcast, Creativity and Crisis. My name is Dr. Glenn T. Martin. These series of podcasts have been created in honor of my newest book called The Earth Constitution Solution, Designed for a Living Planet. For a number of years, I've been president of the World Constitution Parliament Association, an organization working to address our planetary crises and establish an enduring and liberating human future. I'm also a philosopher by profession who loves thinking, creative vision, and inspiring ideas. In these podcasts, I engage in dialogue with prominent thinkers, scholars, and activists who are similarly concerned about the multitude of crises confronting humanity. Are there creative and practical solutions, and how can these be achieved? I hope our listeners will both stay with us and join us in the thought processes that have become an utterly necessary part of our quest for a decent planetary civilization for everyone. My creativity and crisis partner today is Dr. Rashid Shaz. He is an ISESCO Ambassador for Dialogue of Culture Among Civilizations and a professor of English at Aligarh Muslim University in India. Dr. Shaz is considered one of the foremost ideologues of living Islam, both in India and abroad. He has extensively delivered talks on various aspects of Islam in the Muslim world and also in Europe and America. Some of his writings have sparked serious debates on issues of strategic importance. He has published a number of major works. His most recent is called Islam, Another Chance. It is 760 pages. It's a Rashid Shaz reader, and it's edited by Dr. Jeffrey Nash, and it has a foreword by, I had the honor to write the foreword for it myself. Welcome to Creativity and Crisis, Dr. Rashid Shaz. I've been looking forward to having a major Islamic thinker discuss with me about our global crisis and whether there is a crisis and what its roots might be, how we're all involved with it, and so on. What is your thought about, are we in a crisis somehow in the 21st century on this planet?
I think that, as you put it, we are in a crisis of crisis, and probably our generation is experiencing a crisis which no other generation, I think, that would have confronted it. And why it is so? Because as it happens that I find myself in a similar situation when there is a lull before a new prophet comes on the scene or a new prophet emerges on the scene. So this is a situation that I think that we are in. Why it is so? Because of darkness, I feel, that is around us, and you call it intellectual darkness or call it media blindness or whatever. But the fact is that it has become very difficult for us to figure out actually what is happening around us.
Yes.
I understand, you will agree, that search for truth has never been so easy, never in the past. But this time, what is happening is that we are not aware of that the very self that has been the tool for discovering truth, that works for search for truth. So that very self is not in a good shape.
So let me try to understand what you're saying, that human beings have come through many centuries of history, and now we are in the 21st century. Our sense of ourselves, who we are, what we are as human beings, and so on, is become more problematic, become more difficult to discern. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because we are no more that free, to help discover what is going on around us. So in a state of complete darkness, I should say, or to use the Quranic vocabulary, there is no plural. This is the plural word, zulamat, that is darkness. We don't have in English darknesses, but layers of darkness that we are engulfed in.
What empirical events indicate these layers of darkness? Would you say it's all the wars and the terrorism on the planet? Would you say it's the environmental crisis?
Previously, for example, we have been confronting modernism, for example, which brought with itself some sort of industrial progress, but
Yes,
without any ethical parameters,
yes,
or the economic progress, but with no moral responsibility, causing a lot of ecological disorder and poverty and all. So, and modernism, we came to postmodernism, and eventually we have landed into into an era that we call post-truth era, where truth itself is not our concern, but what goes on in post-truth era, that we are content with
well,
this
that
fake news.
that's very interesting to me, because phrase that you're using, post-truth era, has become very prominent in the United States with the reign of President Trump here, and all the wild ideas that have been circulated that don't seem to have any real concern with the truth. And we use that phrase here. So you want to say that that characterizes not just the United States, but the world in some fundamental
Yes,
ways.
in India, here in our country too, we have the different version of Mr. Trump. And what we are facing today, that all the news channel, major all these TV stations and media, whether print or electronic or social media, all are plagued with fake news and wrong information, conspiracy theories, and all that. So the individual, the man, finds himself in a very difficult situation to differentiate what is truth and what is untruth.
I see.
And so much so, I mean, this, for example, this mobile is now in India, the connection is almost free. And that means that we are round the clock at the mercy of what goes on this social media and other related sites. And
Yes.
that has interfered into our personality and distorted it from within.
Uh-huh.
So we feel that we are in no position, no free human being, to put ourselves on road to truth or search for truth.
Uh-huh.
That's had been the magnitude of the problem.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Would you connect up our lack of ability to deal with the global environmental collapse and our continuous wars on this planet, the debacle of Afghanistan, the US and Afghanistan, and so on, the Taliban, all these things? Would you connect them up with this post-truth problem that we're having?
My first concern was and is what has become of us, the human being, that we are in the shackles of this, I mean, capitalist created world in
Yes,
which they control us. I mean, through social media and through this mobile technology. And mobile, since it itself has become an extension of ourself, so we store most of the things and information and rely on it. So it has become a sort of extension of our own self,
yes.
and we depend very much on this. So how to get out of this darkness that has plagued us, and which this social media and and all that is playing a very crucial role. And this is a situation that we call it darkness. And to get out of this darkness, is it possible? So there is from the Islamic perspective, there is one thing that I would like to add, that this zulamat or this darkness is there, and God has to send someone, his prophet, to the people, so that they take him out of this darkness. So the Quran itself is saying that the prophet's main work is to take you out of the darkness,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ila nur, to the light. And since there is no prophet in our era, and he's not going to come, and we ourselves have to deal with the situation. So the Quran, the book says that this book takes you from darkness to light.
Yes.
So that is, now this is the whole any premise on which we have to build. And I believe that I have seen your initiatives, and I why I am interested in this, and it is very attractive. because this initiative is, to my mind, is prophetic in nature, because what you have been doing all these years to create a society on this planet Earth which is just, humane, and which deserves the future of humankind. So to create such a thing is no less prophetic. It is what the prophets have been sent to do. And the whole thing is built on what you call this common good. And I was just reading one of your articles in which you have defined this common good is not national, it is always planetary.
Yes.
So this is what the Quran says. This reminds me of Amal Saleh that I have written
Uh-huh.
at many places. Explain Amal Saleh, the common good, the good that is not only for me or for one community, but is good for the entire humanity. So a human society, an international or planetary human society, has to be created based on a common word, something between you and us. What Quran says that kalmatun sawa bainana wa bainakum. Believe in God and do good deeds. This is amal saleh, common good.
I see. Yeah.
So, so based on this, I think that is very interesting. All these years you have been doing, and to form a sort of Earth Constitution, drafting an Earth Constitution, and trying to form a sort of the institute's called Earth Institute.
Yes, and I think that this, given the threats to human existence, our post-truth world, as you put it, is also a world in which the climate is so at risk that it might lead, many environmentalists say it might lead to human extinction by the end of the 21st century if we cannot stop global warming and climate change. And of course, we all know that we've been faced with the possibility of nuclear holocaust since the late 1950s, when in a major nuclear war, the scientists tell us, might well wipe out humanity entirely. And it seems the Western prophetic traditions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, all recognize that human beings are made in the image of God in some way, that we have a divine imperative, and that if we're open to truth, we have to be aware of that divine imperative and live according to it, right? But the assumption has always been that it's universal, right? That we're one common humanity, and
Mhm.
the work that we're doing in connection with the Earth Constitution tries to actualize that common humanity and give us a framework and a ground by which we can all talk with one another and maybe emerge from this truthless chaos of
Mm.
a world into a world that has communication. And because it's unified and because it's based on the common good, can then be open again to the divine light. I mean, that's somewhat the way I would put it. Does that make sense to you? That kind of framework?
Yes, I think that I have been part of many conferences where they debate ecology and environmental crisis. Few years back, I remember it was in Morocco where they invited me to speak on the issue from Islamic perspective. And I put it that this basically the ecological issue or this environmental science that we teach to our kids, it is basically the subject of theology. And it's very pleasant hear some of the theologians sitting there, the ulema, that basically when we talk of ecology, then we are talking in the framework where we see that man is trustee of this planet Earth. When God said to Adam, Inni jailu fil ardi Khalifa, that he is going to raise to Khalifa, his successor to this planet, Adam being the successor. So to call this environmental issue subject of theology,
I see.
uh, unless we put the whole thing in this framework. For example, when we go on preaching that water is safe water and water is so important and all, but when we put a hadith of the Prophet saying saying that the Prophet, how he asked us to save water, and it's the bounty of God,
Uh-huh.
and should not um, let it go and waste it. We have to hand over this planet Earth to the next generation in a good shape.
Yes.
So once it becomes a sort of religious obligation, then there is the whole force comes behind this. On the seashores, for example, to keep it clean so that the fish, uh, I mean, to save life of fish and all.
Uh-huh.
So these sayings of the Prophet on these places where people go or visit, and so that they don't pollute it, they found that it was very, very effective, because then saving water becomes a sort of religious obligation that carries some reward.
Uh-huh.
This is the framework which was very much prevalent in centuries before, but because of the secularity that has gripped and affected Muslim societies as well, so that this traditional fabric is not in that shape anymore.
You mentioned a few moments ago the industrialization of the world that has taken place during the last couple of centuries. This industrialization, of course, which burns fossil fuels today and sends out global warming greenhouse gases and so on, it is strongly associated with the climate crisis, and the capitalist system that is behind it encourages personal greed in many ways. The goal of life, they think, is to consume things, to get rich, to possess things. It appears to me that, when you're citing the prophet and the ways that we should be treating the earth according to the prophet, that really the purpose of life is much deeper, or we
Mhm.
should be recognizing it as much deeper than consumption and greed for more and more income and wealth and so on. That living on the earth itself must become in some way an end in itself, right? That if there's a divine framework and that we're custodians of this beautiful and precious planet, how should we be living? How should we be thinking about life on earth? Should it be more and more consumer goods?
Yeah, to me, life is a sort of a gift of God, and only once we have to live. I mean, we must be aware of that gift, this bounty of God. And actually, what has the problem here is that in the Quran we have a very beautiful verse about Harun and his wealth. Harun was, we are told in Surah Qasas that Harun was from the Moses, and he accumulated wealth. And the following verse says, it's very interesting that we are told that La tansa nasibaka min ad-dunya, that don't forget to take your share from this world. I mean, a divine scripture is saying that take your right share from this world.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
at the same time, don't be like Qarun, who accumulated so much, who was given so much wealth, but his behavior appears to be very much that of a capitalist.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, what happened in Islam itself, in the Quran, we are told that people are asking, oh Prophet, people are asking you that how much to give away, or as a charity or sadaqah, or
Right.
yeah. So qul al-af, say what is more than your needs. If that is the case, then there would have been a very different kind of economy, and and wealth would not be concentrated in few hands.
Yes.
Happened that in the very early era, people interpreted it as if just giving away 2.5% charity annually is enough.
Uh-huh.
And this capitalism was somehow justified within the Islamic framework.
I see.
Iqbal, who was in the 20th century, and he wrote a very nice couplet saying that there would be a time when this mystery of ulil af, that is, give away that which is beyond your needs
Uh-huh.
or more than, so that this mystery will be revealed. So this we do not know that what is this ulul af, but we know for sure that Islam does not allow, and it will never allow, to accumulate all the wealth or in few hands.
Yes.
And we should never allow few people to enslave us,
Yes.
as it's happening nowadays, for example. This
Yes.
crony capitalism and has made it easier for few people to
Yeah.
enslave all of us.
Yeah. You know,
So this is the situation that we have to come out.
yes. So
And I see light on the other end of the tunnel when I see that we have to unravel the mystery of how we can do it, that we pass on what is more than our needs.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, this has yet to be done. That means a new prophetic wonder or a new revolution has yet to come within Islam itself. And if Islam is the last message of God, then I think that people should look at it as the last hope as well. In a situation where we feel, most of us, all of us feel enslaved, we feel in the shackle of capitalism, so much so that whatever we do is actually, some way or the other, is helping capitalism, as you have very aptly put it. That even if you hold a conference, then basically you are helping the capitalist system
Oh,
by
right.
consuming, yeah, by
Yeah.
becoming, yeah, its users.
Now, one of the things that the Earth Constitution demands is a diminishment of social differences. It wants to address the equitable use of resources around the world, and it will end this vast concentrations of wealth in the hands of a few people. In my view, that this kind of transformative world society, if we can unite the world under this common constitution, under this common democratic point of view, that it will see that the social differences are not our false way of organizing our life on this planet. To have 1% of the Earth's population own 50% of the wealth in the world, and to have these vast areas of poverty in the world, especially in the global south, is both immoral and untruthful. It's untruthful to what we are as human beings and untruthful to the divine light that we should be living in terms of.
Yes, I add one more thing, that this Earth Constitution is the fine document. This has been in the making for quite some time, and it has accumulated, wisdom of thousands of people. Even if we do not know some of the drafters or some of the thinkers of the past, so even all those who have been thinking of utopia, in somehow they have been visualized an ideal world. So
Yes.
they all are part of the dreamers of this. To get to a wider legitimacy and acceptance from the people of all religions and all ideologies, that if it is possible, that is also endorsed not by people but by the scriptures of various religions and civilizations. Recently, I have seen a copy of the Holy Quran, which gives in the footnote this point is also raised in Old Testament and in the New Testament and in the writings of Confucius and
Uh-huh.
Buddhism.
Yes.
So that way, the whole civilization's weight comes with it.
Yes.
I don't know if it is possible or it's a good idea. So that this gets the legitimacy from all great religions.
Yes. In some of my own books and own writings, I cite the truth of the great religions. There's a common core, especially in terms of they all formulate some form of the golden rule, for example. And I try to articulate the philosophical foundations of the Earth Constitution by drawing on these traditions, these common traditions. Well, we have in the World Constitution and Parliament Association that supported the writing of the Constitution, and in the people that worked on the writing of it. I was not one of them. We had people from all the world's great religions. I have a number of people who were Muslims and from Bangladesh and so on. One of the primary authors was later the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, SM.
Muslim world is religiously obliged to support any such move, because this is part of what they stand for. That's kalma sawa, the common word. That is common between you and us. So that common word, the Quran invites people of
Yeah.
other religions and civilizations, especially the people of the book. So this is a sort of religious obligation for us to support any such initiative that calls for a humane world, calls for a peaceful
Yeah. Excellent.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we feel that being part of your participant in this World Parliament, I have great memories of that. I felt very honored to be part of such initiatives.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, it's been terrific talking with you. I wonder if you have any parting thought that you might want to leave with our listeners before we conclude.
To be associated with this mission, I feel that it is holy mission. It is something that everybody who is still alive in his own self, in his inner world, and is all awakened souls of the world, they should support this initiative as more as a religious obligation.
Uh-huh. Very good. To our listeners, I hope you have enjoyed today's dialogue about establishing a living future for the earth and for all future generations. Our podcast has been recorded, and the link will be streamed to multiple social media outlets and posted on my own website at oneworldrenaissance.com. I would love to hear your thoughts and reactions to this exciting conversation. You can email me at gmartin@earthconstitution.world. This podcast has been made in association with Everscope Multimedia. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week, and that you will join us in Creativity and Crisis at the same time and place next week. Goodbye for now, be well, and God bless.